Opening day of muzzleloading season was a cold and blustery morning, but I was ready to replenish my supply of venison. Just last night, I used the last of my ground venison for a pot of chili. This young six-pointer will grow up to see another season. He'll have a nice rack next year. But it's not antlers we're looking for today. Here's what we're looking for. Now that we've taken our deer today, we'll share some deer processing secrets that I guarantee will help you in the field.
This is not Alex the Butcher. This is Sim Harp. Sim, thanks for being here. You know, the reason you're here today, Sim, is we did a hunt earlier. Right. This is not a 12-point buck. This is not a huge animal. But this is what I hunt for early season, a small doe. I put 3 or 4 of those in my freezer. Great eating. Now, a lot of people think, oh, deer tastes like this, deer tastes like that. I think the key is in the processing, and that's what you're here for today. You're an old friend of mine, and I have watched you cut up deer several times, but today we're gonna do it on camera and show some people that might be at home and might want to do this themselves. Okay. So, first of all, you got to have your sharp knife.
This is about your standard 6-inch boning knife. Nothing too fancy, nothing too expensive. You don't need to spend a lot of money. It holds a good edge. It's easy to work with. But any kitchen knife will do, you know, something good and sharp. What we're trying to show people today is how to do it in their house and keep it simple without having to spend a lot of money. And this is something you can pick up at most any store.
13, 14 bucks?
Yeah, 13, 14 bucks. If you want to buy a nice one, maybe 20, 25. Just depends on where you shop. I bought this one in Lexington for about $14.
And Sam, for those who might not have sharpened a knife, it's not hard to keep an edge on a knife. Show us, if you will, how to do that.
This is just a diamond sharpener. And most knives just need a few licks on each side. Hold it at about a 10-degree angle, run it down, and just hone you a good sharp edge on it. And you might have to do that once during a whole deer, maybe twice. Depends on what kind of knife you've got and what kind of steel.
Now, we're not going to have to worry about sharpening the knife too many times because we're not cutting through much bone today.
Right.
Which is the beauty of the way you cut this deer up. There's not a whole lot of boning out. If you will, let's step over to this animal. Let's take a look at the cut side as opposed to the non-cut side.
This is a side we've already done, and as you can see, what's remaining is basically just the bone is left. Everything's been removed without the bone so that when you get it into the refrigerator, you can actually store it a lot easier if you're not ready to process it, and that's what I try to show people how to do. And it's much safer to do it that way because you can hold a constant temperature in the refrigerator if you're trying to let it sit in there for a little while, and you can actually go out and hunt again.
Now, you have taken out the loin. Explain what you've taken off here.
We took off this section right here. We took off the sirloin tip, and this was the eye round, the top round, the bottom round, and then the sirloin was right in this section. And of course we took off the shoulder, and then the rest of the meat on the deer is basically trim meat. You have some rib meat, and you have some neck meat that comes off, and you can grind that into burger.
And then, of course, the tenderloin was right in here. And there's an inside tenderloin that you took out that lays right in here as well.
And I try to show people this because they need to do this if they can in the field. And just take a bread bag or a Ziploc with you, and this is the tenderloin right there. And what you can do is just run your knife down one side. We've already taken one out, and then the other side, and they just fall right out. But it's good, fresh meat, but it dries up quickly.
Now, Sim, right here is a plate of meat that's just, I guess you could call scrap meat, but just stuff you've taken out from in between the ribs. There's no waste. As you look behind you, man, you have cleaned this thing out. There's no waste. And here are the major groups of meat, and tell us what they are, if you will.
Here you have, this is the ham section off the rear of the deer. And what this is, you got your top round and your bottom round. You got your eye round, and this is the sirloin, which fell right at the end of the back loin. This is your front shoulder. It's already been trimmed up a little bit. All these pieces have been trimmed, silver seam taken off of them. This is your back loin, and this is your sirloin tip off the front of the leg. Now all these pieces, like I said, have been trimmed up and they're ready to be cut into steaks, or you can leave them whole for roasts. And they are actually ready for eating.
You know, Sam, a lot of people like to take their meat and let it set for a couple days. Everybody has their own choice about that, and you should do what you like to do. I like to get it out of the field, into the freezer as soon as possible. That's my choice. If you don't feel like messing with it, there's plenty of processors who are doing the same thing you're doing here. But if you'd like to try it yourself, it's not that bad. It's not that bloody. It's not a huge mess.
No.
And how complicated is it?
It's very simple. It takes someone maybe 1 or 2 times to really start to get the hang of it. After their first, say, 3 or 4 deer, they've got a system worked out. It's not expensive. You'd only need maybe $40 worth of supplies and a grinder if you want, and that, you know, you can pick that up at any hardware store for like $25. You don't need an expensive one. A little hand crank one will work great.
Right. All right, let's step over here to the deer, and we're going to actually see how you got these pieces out of that one side. Let's check this out.
Okay, the first step we want to do is remove the shoulder. And the nice thing about removing the shoulder, it's really not attached to the body except with little muscle tissue and ligament. And it just comes right off. And that whole thing can be boned out for burger meat. And that's off. Now this deer was shot a little high above the neck here. The next step you want to go to is the sirloin tip. And the nice thing about it, it's already pre-marked for you. If you look, you can see a seam. And all you have to do is go right below that knuckle and follow the seam. Just come straight in, you'll hit the bone, come down the bone, and come out at about a 45-degree angle. And that is your sirloin tip. And we will peel the outside of that off, and what you'll have is a beautiful piece of meat. Very simple, very quick, very easy. The next step you're going to want to do is a little bit more difficult, but not too hard. You're going to want to remove this back ham section. The first cut will be just below this ligament. You want to leave some extra tissue so the deer doesn't fall on the ground. Just come straight into the back of the bone and follow it around both sides. And then you'll see the femur on the front, and you just want to trim that out. Just use the tip of your knife about 1 inch, and what it'll do is it'll separate that from the bone. Then right here by the tail section, free that up with about 3 or 4 inches of your blade. Just keep right next to the tail. Turn it around, and we are going to remove this right down following the path you can see there, right down next to the tail. This is the start of your loin, so we're not going to get into that. The tailbone sticks out, so go right around the tailbone. Work it free. And all that will just fall away. Now what's in here is your sirloin, and your sirloin's actually right here, so you don't want to cut through that. All this will fall away, and that is your top round, your bottom round, your eye round, and this is your sirloin. And that's what we'll trim out. Now the last piece is the most sought after piece, your back loin, and it's really simple. You just run your knife down the backbone, straight into the neck meat, then come back to the top, and what you're going to do is start to scoop it out. And you want to stay right next to the back. It's kind of hard to get started at times. Once you get it going, it'll come right out. Be careful not to gouge into it too much. But you can see what we're doing is we're going down and we're running right across the backbone. We're not worried about getting way out here because there's nothing out there. And this will run down for about another 4 or 5 inches, and then it tapers out into the neck meat. And if you want to, you can go ahead and trim into the neck meat and take a little bit of that with you because it'll all pull off. As you can see, this deer was shot right through here, and a good rule of thumb, when you find meat that's been shot through, when in doubt, throw it out. It's not worth saving. You want to cut off at least a couple inches on both sides of a shot mark. And that right there, believe it or not, is the majority of a boned out animal. The rest of it is what we call trim meat. And you can remove as much as that as you want to. You can actually work on it for 15 or 20 minutes and get everything, or you can kind of leave it depending on the size of the animal. You can bone out this meat right in here. It's really good for burger. It's good soft meat. There's actually an outside piece. And then when you get to the rib meat, if your animal hasn't been shot in the gut area, you can take your knife, run it into between the ribs, and they will all trim out. And you can save that meat. There might be a pound in this animal, but it's good, tender meat. And that will wind up looking just like this side here, all the way down. And then your neck meat. But this one, since it was shot in the neck area, we're going to toss that meat. Only save what you believe to be good, fresh meat. Anytime you find something that's undesirable, it's best just to get rid of it.
Now, Sam, it always amazes me when you're done with one of these. There's no waste. It's unbelievable. Everything is utilized. That's just an empty shell, and you've taken everything out that you possibly can.
Clean as could be.
Let's step over here and show us how to butterfly something.
Okay. Okay, real quick, we're going to show you how to butterfly this piece of meat. This is the sirloin tip, and any of the pieces of meat you have here can be done the same way, but it's actually very simple. We butterfly to make it a bigger piece of meat, so it's not something real small for the grill. But cut it about, inch, 3/4 of an inch, whatever you want, ½ inch. Go about almost the way through, step over, and then go all the way through, and just lay it open. And then this way, what you'll wind up with something out of a small piece of meat will be more like a large steak. And then you can just open them up, and that's what you wind up with. Nice wide piece of meat. And I'm doing all this with just regular freezer paper, Scotch tape. You can use freezer tape if you want. It's a little more expensive. And some freezer bags from Glad. And all that is all you need. You need also a marker, maybe for marking your bags. But actually, everything we use here can be either purchased at the grocery store, or a lot of people actually already have it in their own home. And that freezer paper will actually keep a deer fresh for up to a year. I've had some in my own freezer that has lasted up to about a year, year and a quarter. But after that, it does start to dry out a little bit. And that's out of one of your sirloin tips. Now the nice thing is, off of a large deer, of course, that would be about doubled, but you cut the pieces a lot thicker.
Sam, thanks again for coming out and showing us how to do this. So many people have asked me to have somebody on to show them how to bone a deer out. Great process. Your meat ends up tasting so good. Do you have any more tips before we...
Well, one thing, a lot of people are worried about meat saws. The only thing you need to do is remove the front legs after you skin them, and we use regular hacksaw. This is a very cheap device, $3 or $4. You don't need to be buying a $60 hacksaw or a meat saw. And keep it simple. That's the important thing to remember. Keep it simple, have fun with it, and feel good about what you've done.
Well, thanks again, Sam, and I'll tell you what, let's take some of this stuff, wrap it up and put it in the freezer, and then let's take a few and put it on the grill.
That sounds like a good idea to me.
Appreciate it, man.